Hello, welcome back to the Cubase Fundamentals course. We're in the process of having a look at chords and scales at the moment. If you're enjoying this series and you want to help to support me making content like this, check out the Patreon link below. In addition, you'll also be able to download copies of the projects as we go and follow this stuff step by step. First thing that we're going to do today is get scales enabled. You want to select the chord track, turn automatic scales off, and just don't ever turn it on again. Cubase will try to interpret the scale of the song. Don't let it. It's just more trouble than it's worth. But once automatic scales is turned off and we click this little button in the chord track that says show scales, we can now configure any number of scales that we want in the song. There is a bug. I once configured a song with lots of different key changes in, saved the project, reopened it, and it basically messed them all up. It got them wrong. And I disabled everything that I was told to. I reported the issue to Steinberg and they weren't able to replicate it either. So now I only use the scale map for simple key changes. If you're going from verse to chorus and it's nice and simple and straightforward, I've never seen it go wrong under those circumstances. So that's kind of just a bit of a buyer beware. But if, like, we have the song in C major and then at bar 9 insert a new key point, then we could turn this into C pentatonic, whatever we want. And obviously I can delete them again. Now the real beauty of the scale editor, and the reason I use them primarily, is for note display in the key editor below. We open this MIDI part up and select the lower event editor. We have this thing called a scale assistant. Now if I ask the scale assistant to use chord track and make the chord track mode just scales to keep it nice and simple, then it does two things. Firstly, it allows us to update the editor so that it shows me what the legal notes are in the scale, and that's enabled with this feature, show scale note guides. Turn that on. You can't see any difference at the moment because it's in C major, but if I choose a different scale instead, let's say C harmonic minor, you can see that the scale map underneath has just changed. So it's a visual representation of what the notes of the scale are. Now that's nice, but the really cool feature is these snap options. If we turn snap, pitch editing and live input on, and I select one of these notes, and if I just press the up and down arrows, you'll see it jumps over the black notes. So it's only letting me edit notes in the scale. Furthermore, if I recorded something in live, this is the snap live input. If I record something in live and press a duff note, maybe hit an F sharp, it'll move that note to the nearest equivalent white key note or note in C major. So it's really useful. I really like these features. That's pretty much it. That's all I use the scale editor for. But it is worth knowing about. It is quite useful. If I create a second scale up here and change it, it updates the editor so that you can see all scales appropriate. This is why I only let it show me scales, because if you let it try to interpret chords as well, the editor becomes unusable. It's just too cluttered. Okay, back to chords. Last time we created this piece piano line by basically dragging the chords down onto the track below. That's very nice and it worked very well, but let me show you an alternative today. I'm going to open the media bay and I've just selected this MIDI file, mod keys groove 3. I've got no idea where it came from. I'm just going to drag that onto the track. I'm then going to duplicate it so that it's the whole 8 bars long and stick those two things together. First things first, let's just listen to it. Okay, it has nothing to do with C major. Those notes are not in the key of C major. This is just a random MIDI file that's just been dropped onto my song. So what possible use is that to me? Well, I can actually rearrange all of the notes in that MIDI event so that they are in C major. If I go to the chords section in my inspector, you can see this option that says follow chord track. Let's engage that for just chords. And what it's basically going to do is interpret the chords of the chord track and map these notes so that they subscribe to those chords. I'm going to tell it to analyze chords. I'm not going to apply it to a known chord. I'm going to just basically have it work directly off the chord track. I never change those options. You can just say OK. And now you can see it's messed with all of the notes in the event. And now that you can see all of these notes are in C major, there are no sharps or flats in there. Now, because it's just transposed some of these notes, we have overlapping stuff. So this note, for instance, overlaps the C4 that it's next to. So I'm going to select all of my notes, delete overlaps mono, which we've covered in a previous episode. And now let's have a listen to that. So this is all in C major. Okay, now this is very nice. That's a very lovely sequence and it fits in with the key of the song. But we can do more stuff with it. The first thing that you need to do though, and this is really important to remember, is go back into your chords options and disable follow chord track. Basically, you only want this feature on when you're manipulating notes, when you're actually doing the change. Because what I'm going to do now is pick up all of these chords on the chord track and move them out of the way. I'm just going to move them over here. If I'd left follow chord track enabled, it would have messed with all of these notes. It would have basically set them all back to my original, whatever it was. So it's important to lock these in place. What I'm going to do now is have Cubase interpret this piece of music and create some chords in the chord track. Basically reverse engineer chords into the chord track. The way that we do that is make sure that you've got the selected track for the notes that you want to map. Project, chord track, create chord symbols. And then in this little pop-up box, I've got all of these three options selected. The more of these that you have on, the more complex the chords will be. I want to give it the maximum opportunity to be harmonically interesting, so I have all of those on. And then you just click OK. You get this warning to tell you that it's basically saying, oh no, there's already chords on the chord track. Yes, I know, but it's only going to insert new chords in this 8-bar section, so it's not a problem. Just tell it to get on with it. And now let's have a look what it's done. So these chords are really pretty similar to what I'd initially input. It's got the C major 7, nailed that, A minor, fair enough. We've got a C over G, and we've got some stuff going on over here. So it's very close to the one that I originally input, and that's no surprise. We've basically reverse engineered something here, but it is also different. Let's hear what these chords sound like. I'm going to mute my piece piano line, and I'm just going to listen to the chord track. Okay, so I don't like those two A minors. But everything else is very nice. Let's get rid of one of them. I like my original A minor 7 here, so I'm going to stick that one back in. So even though it's very similar to my original one, that G over F is very nice. And so I've now got a new flavour of chords to play with. There's no reason why I can't keep both of those. So I've now got a 16-bar pattern that is musical. So let's unmute the original MIDI part that we started with. Duplicate that. I'm going to leave the chord track running in the background as well. So it's going to play the MIDI notes on the piece piano track plus the chord track together. So now we've created an interesting 16 bar line with some beautiful chords in that's got a nice structure underneath. We're going to be able to reintroduce our original Prologue 1 solo over the top of it. And that's a great foundation for our verse. So without falling down too many rabbit holes, we've got something that's genuinely musically useful. What I'm trying to do in this series is really show you what I think are the best features of Cubase. If we glance very quickly into the rabbit hole, this chord assistant feature, which I haven't really talked about because I don't use, will give you the opportunity to say, well, I'm currently on an A minor 7, what chords lie around me? And you get these little kind of clusters of chords next to each other. And if you hover over them, it'll show you the sequences that have got you there. You can also approach it from the circle of fifths to say, well, I'm currently, I was on an A minor, wasn't I? So from an A minor, you can see that that's the 6 of C, and you can even rotate the circle of fifths to get different views. There's all sorts of stuff to go at. Switch between parallel keys, major and minor parallel keys. That can be really useful. So there's loads of stuff in there to investigate. It's really a case of kind of stretching your legs. Like I say, I don't use this because I think it's a little bit too mechanical. Harmony is an incredibly deep subject. I'm really only scratching the surface with this stuff, and I don't know enough to speak with any authority on the deeper intricacies of harmony in terms of cadences and whatnot. I try to keep it relatively straightforward. I've just realised I've deleted my scale, so I better fix that and set us back into scales mode. That's that fixed. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like button. I'll see you next time. Thanks very much for watching.